One scholar, Marc Brettler, whose name I've mentioned before, he says that what we learn from this, or these variations, is something about the way ancient Israel preserved and transmitted sacred texts. They didn't strive for verbatim preservation when they transmitted biblical texts, and they didn't employ cut and paste methods that might be important to us in the transmission of something. Texts were modified in the course of their transmission. Verbatim repetition was not valued in the way that it might be for us, so that even a text like the Decalogue, which is represented as being the unmediated Word of God, can appear in more than one version. There's a more surprising variation that occurs, however, in Exodus 34. After smashing the first set of tablets that were inscribed with the Decalogue, the tablets in Exodus 20, those are smashed after the golden calf incident. Moses is then given a second set of tablets, and the biblical writer emphasizes in the story at that point that God writes on the tablets the words that were on the former tablets that were broken, the same words. So we expect now a verbatim repetition of Exodus 20. And yet we don't have it. The Decalogue that follows, in fact, has very little overlap with the earlier Decalogue. There's really only two statements that even have the same content. And even those which do overlap in content vary in wording. This Decalogue, which is often called the Ritual Decalogue in Exodus 34, it bans intermarriage with Canaanites, lest they entice the Israelites into worship of their gods. It has other terms that give commandments about the observance of the festivals, various festivals, the dedication of first fruits to God, the dedication of firstborn animals to God, and so on, things that were not in the Exodus 20 Decalogue. So evidently there were different traditions regarding the contents of the Decalogue. And the story of the golden calf and Moses' destruction of the first set of tablets is a brilliant narrative strategy for introducing this second Decalogue tradition. Also surprising is the fact that the Decalogue in Exodus 20 doesn't stand completely unchallenged in the Bible. Exodus 20, verses 5 through 6, contain explicitly the principle of intergenerational punishment. God is said to spread punishment for sin out over 3 or 4 generations. This is understood as a sign of his mercy. It's reducing the punishment on the actual sinner by spreading it out and limiting the consequences to only 3 or 4 generations, in contrast to what is said in the next verse, but kindness he spreads out over thousands of generations, right? So it's seen as a merciful mode of operation. But the notion of intergenerational punishment is something that some segments of the community, or perhaps later in time, was rejected, right? Some segments of the community rejected this notion. And so in Deuteronomy 7, we see that quite pointedly. God punishes only those who spurn him and does so instantly. Ezekiel, when we get to Ezekiel, we'll see that he will also very adamantly reject the idea of intergenerational punishment. The children do not suffer for the sins of the father, only the father. So what are we to make of this? Again, Marc Brettler concludes that the Decalogue or Decalogues did not originally possess the absolute authority that is so often claimed for it, even today. Later religious traditions have elevated the Decalogue in Exodus 20 to a position of absolute authority, a position that's not completely justified given the Bible's own fluid treatment of the wording, right, the Decalogue's text, and its content, right, and its later objection even to one of its terms. So the claim that God's revelation of the Decalogue was fixed in form, the words that we see in Exodus 20, for example, and immutable in substance, is not a claim that's really native to or even justified by the biblical text. It's a later ideological imposition upon the text.